All right, now we're going to do a little question from the audience. Today's question is, are we more our sun sign or our rising sign? And the answer is yes. Yes, you are. You are both. There's not one that is more or the other. But the reason why this person and many people ask this question is because I tell people to listen to their rising sign. Or if you go in the app and you listen to your reading for the week, you're listening to your rising sign reading for the week. Why is that? The rising sign sets up every single house in your chart. So if you listen to your rising sign, you're hearing about what the planets are up to in certain areas of your life. If you're listening to your sun sign reading or you're reading your sun sign horoscope only, then you're only reading about how something impacts your sun, one planet, not the area of life. And your sun is only occupying a certain degree. So that's only going to be true when that planet gets to pretty much the exact degree that correlates with your sun. So if you're reading your sun sign horoscope for a Pluto transit, that's only going to be relevant for like 2 years out of a almost 20-year span of time. If you're reading something about Uranus in Gemini impacting your sun, that's only going to be true, A of all, that's for both of these examples, it's only going to be true for certain signs. And B of all, it's only going to be true for like a year of your life. It's not going to be true for the whole 7 years. Not really. Like maybe a little, but not really. It's only going to be true. So say your sun is in Libra and Uranus right now is in Gemini. So we're going to talk about a trine between Uranus and Gemini and your sun in Libra. It's only really going to be potent during the weeks and months where Uranus is in the same degrees as your sun. Whereas if you're reading or listening to your rising sign, we're talking about the whole domain of your chart that it's moving through. So we're talking about the house that it's moving through. It's not talking about the aspect to one planet. Now, that has nothing to do with whether you resonate more with your sun sign or your rising sign. This is the problem, is that modern astrology has conflated the two. Why? Because the sun sign horoscope took the place of the rising sign. Because you don't know your rising. Most people don't know their rising sign. They didn't, especially like a couple hundred years ago when horoscopes started to be written. Or like, yeah, 150, whatever, whenever the printing press came about. So horoscopes were written in the easiest possible way they could be. Most people know when they're born. Most people know, or they can read a list of like, you're a Leo if you're born between this date in July and this date in August. Pretty much, give or take a day, depending on what year we're talking about. So most people can locate, oh yeah, I'm a Leo sun. So then they read that horoscope. But that's only happened over the last couple hundred years. That's never how things were looked at before. It's always been through the rising sign because the rising sign is the marker of the moment you were born. The sun is just where the sun was during your birth. And for the most part, it was there for days before and days after. And yes, the degree matters, but the rising sign changes every couple hours. And it's all dependent on where you were born and what time you were born in. We stand in that place, exact place and time that you were born. And we look over to the eastern horizon and say, what sign is rising up over the horizon? That's their rising sign. That's the sign that says they were born, not your sun sign. Your rising sign tells us when you were born and where you were born or what was rising the exact moment you were born, the exact place that you were born. The sun sign does not tell us that. It's very important, but it's different. So you can read whatever. You read your rising sign, read your sun sign, but just know that it's not really as applicable to your sun as it is to the domain of life that it is, the domain of your chart, the house in your chart that it is impacting, that the transit is impacting. Now, there's a way in which you can look at your whole chart through your sun sign and pretend that your sun sign is your rising sign. And if you don't know your time of birth, that's a great way to do it. So you can look at it like that. But it's not, if you know your rising sign, it's just a way more personalized and way more specific way of looking at your chart. But you're both. Like astrology isn't only a personality test. It's also talking about all the areas of your life. And your rising sign is the only area of your life that's you. And when you read or listen to things about your rising sign, you're getting to understand the entirety of your life. If you're just listening to your sun sign, again, and you know your rising sign, then you're only listening to your chart through the doorway of your sun. And again, those longer transits are not going to impact your sun that whole time they're in a sign, but they are going to impact the house that they're traveling through the entire time they're traveling through that sign. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. I know it's really complicated in a way. Then in another way, once you kind of get the pieces, it gets to be really simple.